Good morning, everyone. I'm going to start by sharing that to commemorate the life and death of Georgia Congressman John Lewis, the City of Madison is lowering flags to half staff at all city buildings today. We'll start this briefing with public health, and then get a report from the police department, and then from parks, and then I'll be back with a bunch of updates after that. So we'll start with our public health director, Janel Heinrich.
Good morning. I'd like to break my update down today into 3 different parts. So I'll talk about our daily case count, testing, and masking. As you may have noticed, we're having some success in the fact that our daily case count has decreased from recent weeks, but it still remains high. In the snapshot that we released on Monday, in the preceding 14 days, we averaged 63 cases per day. This is good news in that a month ago, our 14-day average was 98 cases per day. So we are happy to see this improvement, but we do have a ways to go to get where I think we all would like to be. We continue to find that many individuals with positive diagnoses continue to report that they have attended a gathering or party with people outside of their household. I wanted to remind you all that our current orders limit gatherings inside to 10 and outside to 25. And if you are inside with members that are not part of your household, we ask that you wear a mask because this does help. So please remain vigilant so that we can all keep each other well. As we have stated since the beginning, with some additions as evidence has evolved, that the best tools we have to prevent the spread of the virus are physical distancing, wearing a mask, and staying home if you are sick, in addition to washing your hands and our very tried and true hygiene practices. So please remember to do so, and you can find more tips and tools to keep yourself and your family safe on our website. Regarding masks, thank you everyone for masking up. Our compliance continues to overall be pretty great that we are aware of amongst businesses and workplaces. And I'd like to remind you that for individuals living in apartment buildings and condos, that masks are required in common areas, and that signage should be posted about this. We have received some complaints, and we want to provide some clarification that signage is available and should be posted. You can find that on our website. With regard to testing, the timing of the wait time at Alliant continues to remain quite low. It is often, I would say rarely gets above 45 minutes, and I've heard as low as 5 if you register in advance. So if you need to get tested at Alliant, please go on to COVID Connect, provide your information so that you can zip through there, and results will be provided to you fairly swiftly. We are working with Meriter to provide testing for people who visit the area homeless shelters. Testing will take place at 4 shelters, the Salvation Army, the Beacon, and 2 Porchlight locations, and will be offered on a biweekly rotating schedule. And we expect that that will last into the fall. So thank you to Meriter for working with us because we know that testing, especially for some of our most vulnerable folks, is an important strategy that we need to adhere to. So thank you.
Thank you, Janel. Next is Interim Chief Vic Wahl.
Thank you, Mayor. Just 2 broad topics to update on this morning. The first is continuing follow-up that MPD is doing into the property damage and violence that occurred during the unrest over the last couple months. We have continued to spend a lot of time and effort on following up on these cases. Earlier this week, we did make 2 arrests in the assault on State Senator Carpenter. And in addition, we've made a number of other arrests. I think 12 additional suspects have been either arrested, charged, or cited related to the looting and other behavior that we saw during the nights of unrest. The main charges for those 12 have been burglary, and our burglary crime unit is continuing to work those cases. We've identified other subjects that we're looking for, and we'll continue to work those cases and hold those people accountable. The other topic I want to just revisit again is the continuing gun violence that we're seeing here in the city. And unfortunately, the trend that we've talked about over the last few weeks has continued and in fact has worsened. In the last 2 weeks alone, we've seen 13 shots fired incidents. And in the last week, 4 individuals have been shot here in the city, 1 fatally. 58 shell casings recovered, 6 vehicles hit by gunfire, and 3 residences hit by gunfire. When we look at sort of the larger data points, when we reported the June total of shots fired incidents, it was 29, and that at the time was the highest monthly total we had seen since we've been tracking that statistic. So far in July, the number is 42 shots fired incidents, and there's still a couple days left in the month. But that has unfortunately created a new record high for the number of shots fired in a month since we've been tracking that data. Year to date, there's been 140 incidents, which is an 87% increase over last year at this time. 563 shell casings recovered, which is considerably more than all of last year. 27 people have been struck by gunfire in Madison so far this year, and 53 incidents where vehicles or residents were being struck by gunfire. So it's obviously our highest priority. We're continuing to investigate these cases. The MPD Violent Crime Unit is leading those investigations, and we're doing everything we can to hold the offenders accountable and bring some justice for the victims and their families. And we're also continuing to do efforts both on our part and with other stakeholders to do prevention and intervention to try to prevent violence from continuing, try to prevent retaliation. But certainly this is a level of violence and gunfire in our community that I don't think any of us should accept. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Next, we'll hear from Superintendent Eric Knepp for a report on our Parks Department.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. Our park system is very busy this summer. Public spaces are critical to providing recreational outlets and for physical social health during this time. And we certainly want to appreciate everyone doing so very safely in aggregate. We do want to remind the community that to follow the signage and follow the health orders regarding gatherings and also the physical distancing within the park system, and try to follow the standards, the conventions of following the rules of the road on bikes and bike paths and even as a pedestrian, and try to walk to the right on both walk or bike to the right. Try to keep distance. Most of our paths can accommodate the 6 feet fairly easily. We've made some modifications at places like Law Park to accommodate even more than 6 feet to promote that. And we think it's a great thing to get outside, be active, be healthy. But we want everyone to stay that way and be safe. We have opened restroom facilities at a number of our community parks. All of them that are opened are cleaned at least twice a day. And we would recommend strongly that people be aware of the volume of people using those facilities and not overwhelm them at the same time to keep that distance. Additionally, the beaches are open. The swim lines are out. They're being tested by public health every day during the week, and they're not guarded. However, we're encouraging folks to go to the beaches, but recognize that if you go, you are not being guarded by a lifeguard. The Goodman Pool is also open. We have a 25% capacity. The orders are allowed up to 50, but we're set at 25 to really try to ensure as much space as possible. That's a 250-person capacity. We've been open for a few weeks. Over 6,000 people have visited thus far, and we anticipate being open through at least the majority of August, but we'll continue to have to evaluate that as we move forward. Many of our capital projects are still moving forward. We have planning projects and construction projects. Playgrounds are being replaced. Bike paths and basketball courts are being put up. These are all investments that the city makes into the park system, and most of them are continuing without significant interruption. Our planning processes are the more challenging one. We are holding back on a number related to trying to make sure we have the support for virtual public meetings and community engagement, which is very important to us. From park usage standpoint, another interesting fact or value is we value our lakes a lot in this community. Our lakes are very busy. Lake access permits are up. The annual passes are up 65% year over year. Daily passes are down quite a bit, which we think connotes to fewer people traveling in to use the lakes, which is good. And also residents of Madison using the lakes more frequently and using that as an opportunity to physically distance and recreate and enjoy our natural assets. Boat rentals with our partnerships at numerous locations are up about 30% on rentals on the year, which is again great. All of those groups have plans that have been reviewed by staff in the Parks Division to comply with the orders and exceed the sanitation standards. So it's very exciting. We also want the community to ensure that if you're participating in any type of sport or activity, not even games, which are not allowed for the vast majority of sports, that you consult with the Parks Division, but check the orders and see what risk level your sport or activity is, and do your make sure you're modifying that as best you can. You can still practice things like baseball or softball, but you need to do it in a physically distant manner. And I think we're seeing good results there, but we encourage folks to really follow the orders, guidance, and FAQs from Public Health of Madison, Dane County. And golf has also been open since April. The rounds are up about 14.5%, revenue about 7% year over year. There are additional expenses in the late start. Certainly it's not a solid financial footing for the future, which the Golf Task Force meets for its most likely final time this evening. They have a number of recommendations. The report is online that includes reduction in holes in public golf over the longer term, or over the immediate term, and looking in the longer term to balance capital investments. And the last two things I wanted to mention are, I would encourage bikers, especially bikers with kids who are kind of new to biking off trail, to check out Otto Leopold Park. We've done about a half-mile single track off trail mode into the topography. It's pretty nifty, I think. It's working with partners in the biking community, and it's a first baby step towards enhanced recreational biking access in our park system. And we also are very happy and pleased with the results thus far of our goats as a part of our wildlife, our land management program. We've had them in a number of parks, conservation and general parks. They're a hit with the community, but they're a hit with staff. They're doing a great job removing invasives, and we are very hopeful we can bring them back next year as well, and we're planning for that today. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. I have a number of things that I want to share with folks today, starting with an important update on what's going on in the federal government and how that impacts our city. So this week, Senate Republicans unveiled the HEALS Act as their coronavirus relief plan. It's almost 2.5 months after the House of Representatives passed the HEROES Act. It's really a really unfortunate delay because it means that the situation we find ourselves in is that too many Madisonians are on the verge of ruin, not knowing how they're going to pay their rent, pay their mortgage, or keep food on the table. And so delaying additional relief to families is really unconscionable. The HEALS Act in the Senate fails to provide aid to cities, towns, and villages across Wisconsin, and that's a glaring problem. Without additional support, localities will have to cut essential services just when people need them the most. Madison is facing this year a $30 million budget gap, and some cities and towns have it even worse. The HEALS Act also fails because it guts critical unemployment insurance benefits that are keeping families afloat right now. At the moment, you get an extra $600 a week unemployment insurance benefits, and this bill slashes that benefit. The bill reduces the extra benefit by $200 a week, which forces families to live on less, spending less in our local economy, and puts people, again, at risk of eviction, just as the federal eviction prevention protections come to an end. The bill also fails by not addressing the long-term crisis COVID has caused for our economy, a crisis that may not end until there is a vaccine that's widely available. Congress should do what other countries have done and design long-term economic supports to provide guaranteed income to our vulnerable families. And the bill fails by not including enough money for testing, tracing, or childcare. Testing and tracing are key to reopening our schools and our economy safely. Greatly expanded and affordable childcare options are desperately needed by local families as the Madison Metropolitan School District and other school systems plan for virtual learning this fall. And the bill fails by attacking the census, threatening to cut short the non-response follow-up activities which are crucial to accurate counts of working people, people of color, and low-income people. This bill won't heal our nation, but it will lead to prolonged pain, and I urge all Madisonians to contact their federal representatives as the House and Senate continue to negotiate over this bill in the coming week. The HEROES Act, which was passed by the House, is a vastly superior option to the Senate version. At the state level, I want to thank the Public Service Commission for extending the moratorium on utility shutoffs until September 1st. That is a step in the right direction, and I hope that they will continue to evaluate that date because what we see is many households are in danger of having their utilities shut off because of inability to pay their bills due to COVID-19. I also want to give you an update on the August election. We are offering ballot drop-off sites for absentee voters who wish to return their ballots in person. A poll worker is present at each site wearing a face mask and a high-visibility vest to accept your absentee ballots and to serve as a witness if needed. Absentee ballot drop-off locations include Piney, Ashman, Sequoia, Central, and Hawthorne libraries, and dates and hours can be found on the clerk's website. It may also be more convenient for you to drop your ballot off at one of our drive-up in-person absentee voting sites, and if you didn't request an absentee ballot, feel free to come vote absentee in person at one of these sites. Those sites include the clerk's office, Madison College's Truax and South campuses, Penn, Rindall, and Elver Parks, and the Central, Goodman South, Hawthorne, Lakeview, Meadow Ridge, and Piney libraries. Again, the dates and hours can be found on the clerk's website, and I strongly encourage everyone to vote and to vote early if you're able to. Finally, from the clerk's office front, we will conduct a public test of election equipment at 2713 East Washington Ave from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturday, August 1st and Monday, August 3rd. The clerk's office will break for lunch each day at noon to 1. This is an opportunity for the public to come and witness the test of the integrity of our election equipment to make sure that you understand how safe our election systems are and how hard the clerk's office works to create a safe, fair, and accessible election for everyone. Now, a couple of economic updates. The Commercial Ownership Assistance Program did pass the council, thank you, and that will support businesses owned by people of color and other historically underrepresented groups in acquiring storefronts, offices, or other commercial property for their businesses. Staff are working now to roll out the application process for that program. The council also passed COVID-19 assistance for immigrant families. The city is funding the African Center for Community Development to mainly support African immigrant households, Unidos Against Domestic Violence to support their work with survivors and victims of domestic violence and human trafficking who are Madison residents, and Freedom Inc., which also supports that organization's current work with survivors and victims of domestic violence and human trafficking. Each organization has received $50,000 from the city for this important work. The city has also committed to match $100,000 in Kiva small business loans. Kiva is an international nonprofit crowdfunding platform for small businesses. Community members lend money to local businesses at 0% interest with no fees. Businesses can use this funding as working capital and then pay back their lenders each month. Community lenders can loan as much as they would like, starting at $25. For qualified owners, loans are available from $1,000 to $15,000 through Kiva, and the City of Madison will match the amount raised at no cost to the business owner. So if you want a $10,000 loan, you raise $5,000 from the community, the city will match $5,000. Businesses need to be endorsed by one of the following organizations: the Madison Black Chamber of Commerce, the Hmong Chamber of Commerce of Wisconsin, the Latino Chamber of Commerce of Dane County, Madison Cooperative Development Coalition, Wisconsin Women's Business Initiative Corporation, Dane Buy Local, or the Madison Central Business Improvement District. If you are a borrower interested in Kiva, please visit kivaushub.org. If you are interested in lending to a local Madison business, you can lend as little as $25 at kiva.org. And I personally am a Kiva lender and have supported a number of Madison businesses, and it's a great experience. On to construction. You may have noticed the large cranes going up at Judge Doyle Square. Our new parking garage is open, the old parking garage is being demolished, and construction is beginning on the housing above the new garage. The bicycle center, located at ground level in the new garage, will be open soon. Our public library has partnered with the American Red Cross to host a blood drive on August 26th, 9:30 to 2:30. Please sign up in advance with the Red Cross. And I want to remind you of our community resources. Our housing helpline for folks who are homeless or in danger of losing housing is 608-264-0549, or email housinginfo@cityofmadison.com. Please call United Way 211 to identify emergency food options if you're in need, or you can text your zip code to 898-211. If you're in need of internet access, you can call the PSC for options at 608-267-3595. All of these resources and more are posted at cityofmadison.com under the Community Resources link. Finally, a reminder to fill out your census at 2020census.gov. You can fill it out online, over the phone, or on paper, and we need to do so by October. There's a number of upcoming meetings that I'll just go through quickly. Today at 5 o'clock, the Plan Commission, and at 5:30, the Body-worn Camera Feasibility Review Committee. Monday the 3rd at 5 p.m., the Transportation Policy and Planning Board. Tuesday the 4th at noon, the Police and Fire Commission. At 4:30, the Common Council Executive Committee. At 6:30, the Common Council. Wednesday the 5th, 4:30, Plan Commission. 5:30, Madison Arts Commission. 4 o'clock, Complete Count Committee. 5 p.m., Madison Public Library Board. 5:30, Affirmative Action Commission. And 5:30, Community Development Block Grant Committee. All those meetings are virtual, online, and you can register to watch them via the city website. Finally, don't forget that you can get tested at the Alliant Energy Center, and as Janel said, please register in advance to decrease your wait time there. And we encourage everybody to get tested. So that's the briefing for today. We have some time for questions. So have we got questions?
Yes, Mayor, we have questions for Chief Wahl, Janel, and yourself. So we
All
will
right.
start with Chief Wahl.
All right, we'll start with the chief.
Morning, Chief. So this question comes in three parts. It says, is there a trend in why acts of gun violence have recently started? Is there a part in town that is focused in, or is it all over? And are you able to track if the people own their guns legally, those involved in the incidents?
So I guess to the first question, in terms of sort of the causes, it really varies. In many of the incidents, the shooting incidents that we investigate, they can be ultimately traced to just some sort of dispute between parties that know each other. Could be money, could be relationships, could be drugs, things like that. But usually there's some sort of precipitating event or dispute that gets resolved with gunfire. In terms of geography, there is not a specific area of town where this is happening more often than not. Certainly, I'd say the last month or two, the East District has probably been a little more represented in the shots fired incidents than other parts of the city, but we've seen them across the city and oftentimes, between vehicles on public streets. So there isn't a real geographic consistent nexus to it. And what was the third part again? I'm sorry.
Are you able to track whether these people own their guns legally?
Well, the short answer is no, because it's when there are times where we're able to make arrests or recover firearms, certainly we are able then, that's part of the investigation, is to track the firearm and try to determine how they came to acquire it. But unfortunately, often we're not able to locate the firearm in these shootings, and so there's just no way to know that. But that's part of the investigation when we're able to. And there's really some variance in terms of whether they're obtained lawfully or not in those cases where we are able to recover the firearm.
Okay, and the last question we have for you is, can you give an estimate of how much of the recent gun violence has been targeted and how much of it has been connected to other incidents?
Well, there are some cases, shots fired cases, where we still don't know that, where we haven't identified suspects, or we know very little about about the incident. It might just be a report of shots fired where we find casings and are not able to even identify potential victims or targets. So there's that sort of universe of incidents where we just don't have any idea. The other ones where we do have victims or we do have identifiable parties that are involved, I'd say they're almost exclusively targeted. So where all indications are that the parties know each other, and that for the most part there is not just random acts of shooting going on. There's usually almost always a connection between the parties and some sort of, again, underlying dispute that leads to the violence.
Thank you, Chief. And the next we have questions for Janel. Hello, Janel. We have lots of questions for you. We'll try to say a few here. The first is, there is quite a difference when it comes to positive cases when you compare Dane County to the state. Dane County is much lower. Surrounding counties such as Rock have also encouraged people to get tested at the Alliant. Does this make a difference?
So the question about why we are having a lower positivity rate than other counties. There is always a relationship between the number of tests that are conducted and positivity rate. We have some of the most comprehensive testing in the state here in Dane County. So that is good for us because that means that we are actually able to capture more folks who may have a positive diagnosis. And then that helps us do our work with contact tracing, isolation and quarantine, and those so on from there. So.
Okay. The next question for you. COVID-19 testing at homeless shelters was announced today. When is that starting? Is this the first time there has been an effort during the pandemic to bring testing to homeless shelters?
We have been working for a while to provide transportation to the shelters, as we have that available for on our website if you need support in being able to make testing accessible with some transportation assistance. I don't have the numbers of folks who may have taken us up on that, but we also know that making testing accessible in places that are known and familiar is an important component. I don't have the date in front of me of when that actually starts.
Thank you. The next one is from WKOW27. We have gotten many concerns about the accuracy of the public data available on the dashboard ever since Public Health announced the backlog. What response do you have for those people, and what is being done to ensure the accuracy going forward?
We have done our best since the very beginning to be as transparent as possible with how we talk about data. We started talking about the backlog, in quotes, on June 29th and how that impacts overall positivity rate. This is not something that is just unique to Dane County. This is something that's happening statewide. I'm not able to speak to the volume across the state, but it is definitely something that as we are doing more testing and the process that is given to us to be able to manually, administratively process those takes quite a bit of time. And I want to be clear that it has no impact on anyone's notification of their positive or negative results.
Okay. The last question for you, perhaps two questions, is has any groups or individuals been cited? One for people gathering in large amounts or individuals not wearing masks?
Since from July 13th to the 30th, we have fielded 625 complaints, and we have followed up on about 100 so far, and we have issued 3 citations.
Okay, thank you, Janel. Our next set of questions are for the mayor. Mayor, this one is on golf. It says, would you consider allocating funding in the 2021 budget to subsidize Madison's municipal course? Oh, perhaps it's for Eric, I'm not sure.
I'm waiting to formally receive the report from the Golf Task Force to see what their recommendations are, and I think we'll make a decision on how to move forward after that. But as you know, the 2021 budget is going to be a very difficult one. We're currently projecting somewhere between a $20 million and $25 million deficit. So we're not exactly looking for ways to increase general fund expenditures. In fact, we're looking for ways to decrease our general fund expenditures.
Thank you, Mayor. The next question is around masks. It says, we have seen lawmakers in the Capitol not wearing masks. It is a state building in Dane County. So are you going to issue a rule to require them to wear a mask, or what is your opinion on this?
Everyone should be wearing a mask. It's easy, it's straightforward, it's the best tool that we individually have to protect ourselves and each other, along with our hand sanitizing, which is another great tool. I don't understand why anyone would be out in public not wearing a mask, and I think that everybody should be. There are some jurisdictional issues in terms of our ability to issue rules for state property, but really anybody who cares about their community will be wearing a mask in public.
Thank you, Mayor. The next question says, can we get an update on the civilian oversight and police monitor situation?
Yes, absolutely. So the Alder work group on civilian oversight and the police monitor position has introduced, I think, 3 different pieces of legislation, or will be introducing this week, 3 different pieces of legislation. They have been working very diligently, long hours, many meetings to produce this. And I'm looking forward to that working its way through the legislative process. These are obviously 2 of the most important reforms that we can enact to have both an independent monitor position and a civilian oversight committee. So I'm hopeful that we're making progress on both of those. And I'm hopeful that the work group has come up with something that both I and the council can support.
And the last question for you, Mayor, is asking for your response to the Chicago ban. It says, what is your recommendation to residents, and would you ever put something similar in place?
My reaction is that we here in Dane County and in Madison have been doing our absolute best to contain transmission of the COVID-19 virus. And I think our numbers show that while we had a little hiccup there, we are doing a really good job at bringing our numbers down and flattening our curve again. I can't say that that's true for the rest of the state. And that's unfortunate because the lack of action by the state legislature is actively harming our communities, our health, and obviously our economy. The longer we take as a state to contain this virus, the more economic damage is going to be done. So we need to act and act now to get ourselves out of this situation and make sure that we can move towards a time when it's safe for everybody to travel, regardless of what state they're headed to or coming from. But that's going to take the state legislature taking this pandemic seriously in a way that they clearly haven't yet.
Thank you, Mayor. Those are the questions.
All right. Thank you all very much. I just want to note that we are skipping again next week because we have another press event. So we'll be back August 13th with our next briefing. Thank you all for your questions and for attending.